What is the greatest comeback to an insult you've ever heard? I can't remember the best one I've heard, but I can remember the best comeback I ever did. It is also, in fact, the only good comeback I ever did. I was in 7th grade, and we were in the locker room after gym. People were discussing shoe sizes, because this one kid had enormous feet. I don't know if I have small feet, but mine were the smallest. They said, "Small feet, you know what that means." I didn't mind too much, but one kid crossed the line. He said, "Don't worry, fella, there's like 10 different ways to make it bigger." So I said, "Have you tried all 10? Not very impressive, but it shut him up. I work at a hotel. A few years ago this guest got into a spat with our security officer over something, but she wasn't getting whatever she wanted, so she told him he was full of S. Our security officer replied immediately, "No, I'm not. I took care of that this morning. But thank you for your concern for my good health and regularity." At this time I was about to bust up laughing, so I had to excuse myself to the back office, and as I was leaving I heard him continuing on with this lady, deadpan, "But I promise I eat a healthy diet full of fiber. It warms my heart to know you're concerned with me having regular bowel movements. So the next time I'm constipated I know you're thinking of me." It continued on, and all the more he's playing this deadpan, and it's making the lady madder and madder, and I'm in the back laughing so hard I'm nearly crying. After that spiel was over though, she didn't give us any more problems the rest of the night. When I was in high school I had an ancient history class with a teacher named Mr. O'Neill. He was a really educated and well-spoken, but quiet, younger guy, a bit chubby with curly blonde hair, and liked wearing bow ties. In this same class was this kid named Jake, who was one of those kids that always acted like a smartass to every teacher in order to try and get a laugh. He was so annoying he actually had a stapler thrown at his direction by another teacher, which is a whole other story I told the other day. Anyway, I remember one day Mr. O'Neill was having trouble reaching the string to pull down the screen for the projector. He would make little jumps and swat at the string, but just barely couldn't get it. Jake noticed and saw an opportunity, so he yelled out, "What's the matter, Mr. O'Neill? Can't reach?" Him and his buddies chuckled to themselves like a bunch of goons in the corner. Mr. O'Neill replied, "No, Jake. I'm just getting my morning exercise." And then he started touching his toes. It wasn't the most clever comeback, but coming from a guy like Mr. O'Neill it was pretty hilarious. More importantly, it shut Jake up, and a majority of the class started laughing at him. Mr. O'Neill became a bit of a hero for being the guy to shut down one of the annoying smart-ass kids that would always disrupt class. My brother was in his history class that just happened to have accumulated all the really disruptive and not so intelligent kids. They'd constantly interrupt and make the class hell, and the teacher didn't really do anything about it. One day, a girl who had caused a ton of problems acted up in the usual way to derail the class, and he had had enough. He turned to her and told her to shut up, and she flipped. The teacher told her to be careful what she says to him, because she might be working for him one day. My brother turns to the teacher and goes, "No, I don't plan on being a pimp." The class loses it. The teacher has to step out from laughing, and that girl apparently didn't bother my brother for the rest of the year. Back in high school, I was in the orchestra. We went on several big national trips each year. One year, a group of upperclassmen were busted for pot in their hotel room. Everyone except one guy was suspended and prohibited to attend future trips. The one guy who wasn't in trouble apparently hid in the shower and played dumb, and they believed him. So a week later the entire orchestra is practicing with the teaching assistant when our conductor enters the practice room and in front of the entire 114 members of the orchestra says, "Jason, all your friends ratted you out. They're mad. I'm mad. You played me like a fiddle." "That's what I play," Jason replied, raising his violin. My brother got a terrible haircut from Supercuts. He didn't know it was a place for learning barbers. They basically shaved his head. He was so pissed. So the next day at work our boss, on break in front of everyone, said to my brother, "So you're trying to copy your videos and got cancer, huh?" My brother makes super edgy / gay / dark comedy skits, and our boss is 5'4" very short. My brother immediately snapped back with, "Yay, well at least I can ride all the rides at Six Flags." We all died from laughing. Fun bonus story. Later that night the boss, who was pretty cool, tried to say something again which I don't remember. I just remember what my bro said, which was just because I can reach the cookies from the top of the fridge doesn't mean you gotta be crying all night. Pretty good but not as funny as the first one emo. 18th century British radical politician John Wilkes was told in Parliament by a political opponent, "Sir, I do not know whether you will die on the gallows or of the pox." Wilkes shot back with, "That depends, my lord, on whether I embrace your lordship's principles or your mistress." My grandparents used to bicker. My grandmother generally came out on top, as she was fierier. One time though, she was asking him to do a bunch of stuff, and he muttered, "If you'd lose some weight, you could do it yourself." She fixed her gaze on him and glowered, "I'm thinking of getting rid of about 200 pounds of useless fat immediately." He replied, "You're going to cut off your foot." Saw a clip of a stand-up comedian the other day, and he says something along the lines of, "The first time I had sex it was terrible. The first time I had sex," and a woman chimes in with, "You mean yesterday?" Crowd laughs for a while, and while the comedian is waiting for them to calm down you can see the gears turn in his head. Once it gets down to basically a few chuckles, he just says, "Glad you remember," and the crowd just lost their ass. It was amazing. One of my co-workers was cold calling customers, trying to get appointments to drum up business. One of them told him to go freak his hand, and he responded with, "I've got that penciled in for 3. I should be done by 4, if you'd like to come in for an appointment then." The guy laughed his ass off, and ended up coming in for the appointment. I was the one insulted, but not the one with the comeback. I was out with a co-worker and her friends, and my buddy and I were leaving a little too early for her sensibilities. She jokingly got up in my face and said, "Smell that? Smells like pussy." A guy playing at the pool table next to us stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry, that must be me. I just ate." It was amazing. Not heard, but read. Easily the Spartans' reply to Philip II of Macedon. As Philip II of Macedon was conquering Greek city-states left and right, Sparta was left alone. Philip had achieved a crushing victory, and Sparta was relatively weak and without walls. Philip sent a message to the Spartans saying, "If I invade Laconia you will be destroyed, never to rise again." The Spartans replied with one word, "If." My grandma asked my cousin, who'd had lots of partners and 2 kids at this point, if she was ever going to get married. "Cousin, it's not the same nowadays. We don't buy cars without test driving them first." Grandma, "Yeah. But they don't let you put 100,000 miles on them either." Point goes to Granny. In high school, we congregated in our cliques around the benches. One friend is cracking his knuckles, and did this fairly often. Another friend saw this and remarked, "You pop your hands a lot. You must jerk off a lot." The friend that popped his hands immediately looks at him and calmly says, "You pop your jaw a lot. You must suck dick a lot." Weirdly enough no one laughed. We just all shrugged and took it as a logical explanation. It's been over 20 years, and I still think about the logic. On a construction site one afternoon, different trades were working in the same area. Like silly team sports, the Sparkies always hang with the Sparkies and the Turd Wranglers always hang with the Turd Wranglers, and anytime they're together it turns into a pointless dick measuring contest, usually not literally. One particularly childish exchange saw 2 men chopping back and forth, "My dick biggest, blah blah blah." Finally one of them spits out this classic, "I've got girth like a can of con." And the clapback was unforgettable. "But you've got length like a can of tuna." Everyone busted up. Mr. Girth tried to hide his embarrassment, but was tied up. No comeback. And a room of men laughing uncontrollably. Good times. It was a exchange between 2 co-workers a few years back, basically a slut shaming gone wrong. Person A had only ever slept with one person, their previous boyfriend, that they were still obsessed with. Person B was the opposite, and would bang a different person every week. Person A, "I can't believe how many people you've slept with. I don't understand how people can have sex with someone they aren't in love with." Person B, "Well, your ex-boyfriend seemed to manage it okay." Person A, silence as he dies inside. Definitely a great comeback, but not to an insult, more to an annoyance. I was a camp counselor for a few years at a summer camp. One day my group took a hike to a large rock, where we had lunch. My campers were between 8 and 10 years old. This one kid we'll call Jeff keeps poking another kid we'll call Matt in my group to look at this hole in the rock. It's so cool. It's like 6 inches deep and the other kid is clearly getting annoyed just trying to eat his lunch. He keeps shoving sticks into the hole and trying to get everybody to look at it. Finally Matt just puts down his sandwich, looks at Jeff, and goes, "I'll be 6 inches deep in your mom later if you don't shut up." I was trying so hard to be stern with this kid for saying something so inappropriate, but I kept cracking up. It was just such a disproportionately ridiculous thing to say coming from a 9-year-old.